My name is Michael Wilson, and I am decidedly not the fastest man alive. I am, to most people, just an ordinary film lover, but secretly, with the help of some of my friends, I analyze films in depth and bring them to you in podcast form. We are the Silver Screen Podcast. Welcome. And today, if you hadn't guessed by all of the social media posts and the hints that we've been dropping, we are going to be doing a very special episode in honor of the upcoming movie, The Flash, which seems to be adapting the Flashpoint storyline. We are going to be looking at two things, well, three kind of things. The original Flashpoint story that happened in comics, the movie adaptation, Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox, and Season 3, Episode 1 of the Flash TV series entitled Flashpoint. Since all three adapt the same story, and it looks like that's what the film's going to do as well. Before I go any further, I couldn't do this alone, and I am joined by my faithful comic book sidekick, Tobi. Welcome back.
Hi, I don't have a catchy catchphrase, but I'm here anyway. Catchy catchphrase. That's weird.
You can be my kid Flash during this review, then maybe.
Oh no.
But yeah, so before we go much further, I did want to say there are going to be mild speculative possible spoilers for the Flash movie, because I do want to kind of explore things that the movie might do, but it will entirely be based on things that I've seen in the trailer. I don't know anything in advance at this point when we're recording. I haven't seen anything. I've just literally seen the trailers and trying to base it off that, what we might can decipher that they're doing that adapts Flashpoint, as it certainly seems to be. But yeah, ultimately we're here to look at those things. So, Tobi, any initial thoughts before we dive straight in with our first thing?
Any initial thoughts? No, let's just say it was really fun to just have multiple things to look at and compare, and it was different from the usual.
Yeah, definitely,
so
and it's
definitely a fun change of pace.
It's going to be interesting to see how the film adapts it, because like I said, it's definitely adapting a version of this story, but I feel like, in terms of the comic and the animated movie are basically the same thing. Then the TV series did something completely different, and now the film's going to do something different again, but it's all the same story, so it's going to be interesting to see. Awesome. Well, if that's all, then we'll jump first in with Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox for our first review. You'll probably have noticed that I don't have my usual sidekick DK with me here today. He's off having some family time. So in the absence of DK, it falls to me to do the behind the scenes section. So I'm going to play some nice superheroic acoustic music and give you probably way too much information, but I do have some behind the scenes for the animated movie. So first of all, in the comics, after Flash undoes the alteration to the timeline, he encounters Pandora, who guides him in reshaping the timeline. This reshaping led to the DC Comics reboot known as the New 52. Although that sequence is omitted from the film, both Flash and Batman are seen in their New 52 outfits in the final scene of the film. More about all that later. This film acts as the first installment of what became called the DC Animated Movie Universe, a new series of DC animated films that are set in the New 52 and take place in the same universe, the kind of the animated equivalent of that. The voice of Superman in this film is played by Sam Daly. Sam's father, Tim Daly, previously voiced Superman in the animated TV series and various DC animated movies. Some elements of Flashpoint were changed for the movie. The most noticeable is the end fight. In the comics, it's Enchantress who betrays Flash, kills Captain Thunder, aka Shazam, and is defeated by Superman. In the movie, Wonder Woman kills Captain Thunder and Aquaman kills Cyborg, only to get his arm sliced off by Superman and killed by Wonder Woman. Lots happens in that final battle. The film features a number of cameos, including but not limited to both versions of Aqualad, Ocean Master, Clayface, Icicle, Goldface, plus references to Captain Singh, Wally West, Dick Grayson, and Harvey Dent, on top of many others. We could be here all day listing it, but we were just saying before recording, if you have a favourite character in DC, no matter how obscure, they probably turn up somewhere. So, at the beginning of the film, Barry is seen running toward the front door of his home. His home is drawn to look exactly like the home of Marty McFly in Back to the Future. Marty, as you know, also inadvertently ruined his timeline and was forced to go back and repair the damage to set things right. And finally, it is implied that the alternate timeline's Joker is Martha Wayne, driven insane by her son Bruce's death. As I think we picked up on, it's less than subtle, shall we say, in the movie with that scene when we go to the flashback. So, that's all I have on this particular Flashpoint adaptation, the animated movie. Anything there that was shocking to learn for you, Tobi?
No, but I do have one extra fact.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, always.
Two of the voice actors are also in Grey's Anatomy.
Which ones, out of curiosity, then?
The Flash, Barry Allen,
Okay.
and Thomas Wayne.
Okay,
both
cool.
main characters on Grey's Anatomy. Oh, used to be. One is not anymore on the show.
Fair enough. Awesome. Well, everyone's very good in this, as we'll get to, because I did want to talk about the acting as one of the things. I always say this, but if you are new to us, we don't do a kind of recap because it's assumed that you've seen the movie or you'll be able to get context. But we basically break down our review into sections, like writing or plot, then direction, acting, visual effects, music and sound, etc. With our review dotting about all over the place, just talking about whatever kind of becomes relevant to us to discuss. And we kind of have that loose structure that way, but it seems to work. So with that in mind, I did want to change things around a little bit, and I wanted to first talk about the writing and the plot of this movie, since it seems perhaps the most important thing. And Tobi, did you have anything you wanted to start us with regard to the writing, or perhaps comparisons to the Flashpoint comic books even?
I mean, we already talked about this before the recording. It's basically the same.
Yeah.
Except some things. I can name one thing that I noticed was different, and it was the first Superman sequence where they escape like on this tunnel and go outside, and there are all these military guys. It is way better in the movie than in the comic, because in the comic it's really quickly handled in like 2-3 panels, and that's it. And the movie does kind of the same, changes it up a little bit without they throw out the side character that rescues them, because nobody needed that side character. Superman just rescues them and then goes away. But we get all the nuance to Superman's character as well, without any of the unnecessary stuff. It's way better.
I did notice as well that there is one point from the comic, which it's probably good that it got cut, because they mention in the comics that when they go to Project Superman, there are 3 specimens that are there, which presumably is Superman, Supergirl, and then they find a canine skeleton, which I'm guessing was Crypto. But that's really dark, so I can imagine that's why they decided to leave that out. Like, nobody wants to see a dead dog, basically. So yeah, it was noticeably absent from the movie version. But yeah, it's interesting that that's the first thing you bring up, because that's something that it seems like they're going to be adapting relatively faithfully in the movie, only with Supergirl in place of Superman. Like I said, from what we've seen in the trailers, it looks like Barry, does the usual, the key thing of going back in time and saving his mom, and creates basically a world without any metahumans, which does still have a Batman because he's not superpowered. But that it seems like the government have this sort of Kryptonian project that they've kept sort of hidden away. Only in this case, like I said, it's Supergirl who that they free, and that gets that particular plot out of your way. And it's interesting that they decided to do that. Obviously, I'm assuming that's because of this whole mess that's going on with Henry Cavill and everything, and is he or isn't he Superman, so it avoids having to deal with that issue, whilst also introducing Supergirl if you're a fan. So yeah, it's weird that they kept that part, but it seems like, again, they also keep the sort of altered Batman, but it's not Thomas Wayne, which I think a lot of people are disappointed about, because everybody really loves that alternate version, and you can see how it captured the imagination. But in the film, obviously it's the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton Batman. So, you lose one thing and gain something, perhaps. So, yeah.
I mean, from the looks of the trailer, it looks like they are actually putting also the thought onto Supergirl, so they are giving her proper character. Because the comic just does nothing with Superman, really, mostly. For the most part. And the movie corrects that, not by adding a lot of stuff, but just extending the scenes that Superman is in and giving it more depth with that. And I think the first sequence where they are outside really shows that.
Yeah, I was personally always kind of fascinated with that being the idea that in this timeline, they do the thing of he didn't crash and get raised by the Kents, but he crashed and caused a horrible disaster, and then he's been kept away from the sun, so he's this kind of emaciated thing that's never had any human contact, and yet, like I said, they kind of don't believe he's the most powerful being, and then he gets to the surface, and suddenly these immense powers come on him, and it's like, oh, okay, all right, I see what's happening here. So it's an interesting way of looking at it, but I did like that I think it's in the movie, but rather than the comic, but that Cyborg points out, it doesn't matter where he was raised. We know that Superman is ultimately good and he will kind of save everything. And he does try. I mean, he comes in for a heroic kind of last attempt, I think, during the fight. But yeah, he's less than effective, shall we say, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't know if it's said like that in comic, but this nuance is definitely in the comic as well. I know that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just as much pointed out or more hinted at, because the comic really just hints at stuff with Superman and stuff. And
the
movie makes it a bit more clearer, which I think is good, because I didn't get this nuance just out of the comic. I only got it afterwards, and then I looked at the comic because it was like, this is different, and then I got it, and then okay.
I think it's one of those things where if you, as we were discussing sort of off air, there were so many tie-ins that gave a little bit more depth to stuff. And I think that's one of the cases where if you'd read World of Flashpoint featuring Superman, it would perhaps have given you a bit more of that depth as to what they were trying to say and what his role is. But ultimately, as you know, if you've watched the film and read the comic, the primary focus is it's Wonder Woman and Aquaman that have kind of changed everything, and they're at war, and that's the huge clash. And then obviously Batman's important because it's Batman and it's DC. He can't not be important, it seems. But again, it's a really cool idea that everybody immediately latched onto this concept of, how weird would it be if it was Bruce that was killed and his dad became Batman, but he was a way more brutal Batman and he uses guns and he breaks fingers and everything. So it is interesting, and it's telling that I think that's the thing that's stayed around the most. Like if you play any of the video games, the alternate costumes are all like Flashpoint Batman and stuff. And it's weird for a story that's ultimately the Flash's story that Batman kind of was the most important character. And it seems like, again, the movie is going to do much the same, and it's more of a Batman film. But, given the lead actor, maybe that's a good thing. Who knows?
It's definitely interesting what they did with Batman. I think it needs a little leap of logic to get into that stuff. Into Batman in the movie and in the comic, but I think once you just let yourself get into it, I think it's really interesting and good.
I will say it kind of bugs me that the kind of the big central end moment of delivering the letter to Bruce from his dad, it's really sweet and everything, but to me, to my sort of weird nerd brain, I'm just like, well, that shouldn't exist. That letter just shouldn't be there.
Okay, but I just thought it was a really sweet moment, and I liked it a lot.
Oh yeah, I forgive it because it's such a sweet moment, and it's like, we don't really care about the logic of it so much as the emotion, but there is still a part of my nerd brain that's like, hang on, what? But then again, I mean, they do also explain that the Flash still has all the memories and everything as well, which is really sweet when they explain that, or maybe it's a gift, Barry, that you remember that life with your mum now and everything. So yeah, I guess it's the same.
What I didn't really like, and I think it was I don't even know if this was in the movie, but it was in the comic, where Batman basically says he doesn't care about the world Gotham at all. And I thought this was odd. Like, he's more brutal and everything, get behind it, okay, but he doesn't care at all. Then I asked myself, then why do all this stuff? It was a little bit odd.
It's kind of implied that he just enjoys he's kind of in much the same way as like Martha was driven mad and kind of became the Joker. I think his is just like he took all of his pain and made it into like, I'm just going to use it to beat up criminals and be really brutal. And he doesn't necessarily care about like the justice of it or the morality, as shown by him just throwing Yo-Yo off a building in both versions. Just, should have let her hit the ground, I don't care kind of thing. So I don't think it's so much, a crusade for right and wrong so much as I just enjoy beating people up because I'm in pain and why not kind of thing. But I do think as well at a certain point when he realizes like this altered timeline and that Flash can change it, he immediately just resigns himself to, okay, let's change everything back to Bruce being alive again. And I don't really care what else happens.
Yeah, that again, I really liked. That was, I really liked that thing that he was really on board with. Okay, let's change it. Let's do that. I think this really fit. This would also really fit the original Batman. So I thought this was a similarity that I really liked to see again.
I do like whenever they bring up that, like the original, as you said, the Bruce Wayne Batman, because there's a really cool moment that I think is in both, as I remember correctly, where they're trying to get everybody on board, but they all say they'll only do it if Batman does it, and he's kind of standing there, he's not having any of it, and then Flash just says Bruce would have come, and that's the prompt that Thomas needs to be like, all right, I'll follow you then. So yeah, I like it. Before we go any further, we really should deal with the primary thing, which is the one thing that's the same in all versions of Flashpoint, which is this is all kicked off by Barry basically deciding to go back in time for one reason or another and save his mum, who, as we now know, was killed by the Reverse Flash, aka Thorn, aka Professor Zoom, at some point in the past. So yeah, it's such a cool central idea that we're so used to, I think, being like nerds who watch time travel stuff. But it's still such a cool concept of like the butterfly effect type thing of, oh, change the past and make everything happy. But then the entire world just falls apart horribly. Careful what you wish for kind of thing. I think in the movie, they actually have the Reverse Flash say it's like a reverse It's a Wonderful Life. That might be actually the TV show. I'm not sure. But I was like, that's a really weird way and like an interesting way of putting it, that you've changed everything, but it's actually far worse now. Yeah. So what do you think about that idea anyway then, Tobi, about like the Flash going back and trying to save his mum? Because it's really noble, but it's clearly a huge mistake,
It's a great idea to do a story around it. I mean, it's not the most original idea, going back in time and, back to the future.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah,
but I think it's definitely a good idea to just do it with the Flash. It's a great idea. It's a good idea to restart the universe, I think, also.
I did find it interesting that, like, when Barry wakes up in this new world, it's not an immediate sort of, oh, what's happened? You see that the cool first touch is like Citizen Cold being Central City's hero, and he's obviously, fooled people, and the Flash doesn't like that idea. Now it's a Cold museum instead of a Flash museum, and there's no rogues, and he's surprised to learn all about the war, and his mum gives him that exposition about how things have changed. And I really like the idea that the way he says it, that he learns about the sort of change is like, oh, I'm the Flash. Who's the Flash? A superhero, like Superman. Who's Superman? Oh, well, maybe like Batman. He's, I know who Batman is. So it's kind of like we've already established who exists and who doesn't in this world via that dialogue, which is really cool. In terms of plot as well, what did you think about this idea that Atlantis and the Amazons have gone to war? The Amazons have taken over Great Britain, which I'm not happy about, by the way. so we've become New Themyscira now. We're Amazon controlled over here. And the Atlantis have sank most of Western Europe, unfortunately. And it's revealed by flashbacks that this is all because Aquaman and Wonder Woman had a bit of a fling. Mira saw and wasn't happy about it, that being Aquaman's like wife. Mira tried to assassinate Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman killed her first, and that kind of sparked this huge epic war that's now gone way overboard. So yeah, what did you think of all that?
I mean, I don't really have a lot of positive or negative thoughts about it. I just think it's a fun idea, and why not go for it?
Yeah, it is.
It makes vaguely sense. You have to, again, just let yourself get into it, but it's a fun idea. It's a fun idea. Why not? Why not?
Yeah, I think the same. It's one of those things that you can kind of get the impression, like, if they were told the brief was to basically create an altered world where everything's gone wrong so that they can then, give you the new 52 timeline at the end of it when it's repaired. And, why not go a little bit crazy and be like, well, we can make anything we want to make this new world be disastrous. And yet we need a place for all the heroes. So, yeah, why not have two of the Justice League have a world-destroying war with each other, So, yeah, it works, I think, really well. And the motivation makes sense as well. Like I said, the whole... Yeah. Wonder Woman killing Mira, then wearing her helmet is a pretty sort of like, oof, no wonder Aquaman was pretty annoyed with you, Yeah, I like it. Let's see, where were we? So obviously we have the kind of explanation that Bruce died and Thomas Wayne lived, and immediately sort of see that he's a very different Batman, like I said, because he starts breaking Flash's fingers and saying like, I used to be a doctor. I can use surgical instruments and everything on you. And yeah, I think in the comic, he says, like, I'm not the hero because when I first met Barry Allen, I basically almost killed him. It's like, yeah, no shit. You really did. Yeah, you weren't a good guy. And that's after we've already seen him, like I said, almost throw Yo-Yo to a death off a building. So Yeah, this isn't Bruce Wayne that we're used to. So how did you react to that when you saw Batman acting kind of differently? Were you kind of thrown by that or not so much?
I wasn't really, because I think the conflict of violent nature in Batman, I mean, I don't know how much it is a talking point in comic scene, but it's a huge talking point in film Twitter.
Yeah,
where they're bitching about this stuff constantly. Glad I'm not a part of this anymore.
Yeah,
but I still remember that this was like a huge talking point where people discussing about, like, I think it was the Nolan films that I mean, like, a resurgence of people watching this and reacting to it, and huge discussions. And so I wasn't really surprised by this, because it was a possibility that was always discussed.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because a lot of the times in the movies there is that it becomes a whole discourse about, well, Batman should never kill and everything.
Yeah.
So having seen the live action movies, it probably wouldn't be that shocking to you if this was the Bruce Wayne Batman. I think it only really works if you know the kind of the comic book version and how different and surprising it would be, I guess, in that regard. But I can see why that wouldn't necessarily look any different to you of watching like the Nolan films and the Zack Snyder films, or even the, Batman Returns when he's throwing bombs at a clown and then kicking him down a sewer kind of thing. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
I would say it's only really shocking if you only know the comic version, because if you know both, then you are prepared to have this as a possibility. So you just go, oh, okay, they're doing this, okay.
Yeah, you accept it.
It's only if you really only know the comics that you can go, oh, that's a little bit shocking, that's a little bit completely off.
Yeah, definitely. That's fair enough.
Because I know a good part of Batman comics, because I started reading DC comics lately.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really good, because, well, even then there are some, if you look at things like the Elseworlds versions, especially the likes of the Dark Knight Returns and stuff, where Batman gets quite dark in places, so I can see why that would be the case. Like you said, it's just an alternate version, so it's probably not that shocking, but I think that was that, you were supposed to be a little, especially considering, like I said, this is the animated universe, and we'd heard, because they used Kevin Conroy, R.I.P., to voice the original Batman. So I think it was kind of supposed to be, that you establish that as being your world's Batman first, and then you're shocked when this guy acts very differently and sounds different, obviously, as well. But anyway, so then the film and the comic both basically just get into throwing a whole load of cameos at you all at once. I noticed Steve Trevor obviously is killed by Diana as a sort of horrible irony. You get the Ravager ship with Deathstroke and Lex Luthor, Ocean Man, Black Panther, Clayface, Vixen. Were there any cameos that particularly appealed to you? Because I'll be honest, I was just glazing over at this point. I was like, yeah, all right, more characters.
No, I couldn't really put the mental energy into looking at each cameo and stopping and going,
yeah,
where are we coming from? Where is this going? What is this character about? What are the exact changes? No, I just go, okay, cool.
Yeah, I was much the same, which is probably why I wasn't that fussed about all of the spin-off comics and stuff, because they're not important at the end of the day. It's just kind of like, all right, they're fighting each other. Some are on some side, some are on the other, and I recognize the odd one, and then there's some that you don't recognize. I did like I said, when they do something clever with it, like having it be Steve Trevor that's trying to break into the Amazon's lines, and then basically Wonder Woman has to torture and kill him, because their kind of relationship in the main timeline. So that's an extra kind of layer of, ooh, that's horrible. But then, yeah, when you get to the ship and it's just like random characters fighting each other, it's not all that important, is it really? Cool. I really do like the idea that they try to recreate the lightning strike that gave Barry his powers, but I especially like that it just fails horribly the first time. I don't know why. Maybe I'm sadistic, but it was just like, I always hate when these things are too easy, so I kind of liked that he tried it at first and just ended up with third-degree burns and like horribly injured. It's like, that would be what would happen, It wouldn't just immediately work out. Were you surprised to see that happen? Did you think it was all going to work out for him easily enough or not?
I think it was a little surprising, for sure. It was a little surprising. I really like how Batman is just after very much a good second time, like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're completely crazy. Like the first time was crazy. Second time, no. This is completely.
Yeah. It's so good. There's a line in the film that's not in the comic as well, when he's like, "You're crazy. You can't want to try this again." And it's like, what happens if you just set on fire again? And the Flash just goes, "Well, this time put the flames out faster." Just like, dude, what are you doing? But yeah, I mean, it works the second time, thankfully, but still.
Yeah,
and thankfully his healing works.
It's not.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Things are dark, but not that dark. But yeah, that's fair enough. I did make a note of one particular line that I thought was quite interesting in relation to the upcoming movie. When, like, I love the idea that the Flash basically goes to get his costume out of the ring, and it's the Reverse Flash costume, the yellow one, because the Reverse Flash is like taunting him, so they say. But then Batman gives him that costume to put on and just says, "Well, you need a costume, and I'm not about to loan you one of mine." Because in the new movie, that's literally what happens. Like, the Flash just spray paints an old bat suit. You can see in the trailer, he's just spray painted over the Michael Keaton Batman suit with the Flash logo and red where it used to be black and stuff. He's even like pulled the little ears off the cowl. So I'm like, it's funny that you included that line without knowing that eventually there's going to be a version that does just steal a Batman suit. But yeah. And it was a nice touch that he, altered it from the yellow suit to the red one to give him his suit back. What did you think about this idea that Hal Jordan kind of comes into things as being important, but not because he's the Green Lantern? He's just he's firing a missile that in the comics is called the Green Arrow, just so you can get another sly reference in there. But he's like sort of going to deliver the final blow to them and try to save the human world, I guess. And this seemed very weirdly left field for me. It didn't really have anything to do with anything other than, like I said, just like, oh, we need another Justice League member to see where they are now.
I was so confused at first. I just went,
right.
What? Why? What is going on?
Yeah. I mean, I get it. They're basically trying to say that there's an epic three-way kind of final fight where it's the Amazons versus the Atlanteans and then humanity trying to save themselves as well, and they've all basically got their own versions of doomsday weapons. But it still just felt a little bit like overkill to me. Like, all right, we get it. Things are going bad. Whatever. Yeah.
One little change I also noticed was, and that's very minor, in the comic, the hangar with the plane was open. In the movie, it was closed.
Yeah.
I don't know why I noticed that, but I just noticed.
There is another change actually, which again, it's really weird that they decided to do it, because in the comic, it's just a modified plane, which they don't explain how they've done it. It's a regular human plane with this Green Arrow missile on. But then in the movie, they actually say that they took the alien spaceship that Abin Sur was in, him being the original Green Lantern that gives Hal his powers in the comics. So in the cartoon, in the film, he's flying a spaceship rather than just a modified F-15 or whatever. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting change, but it doesn't seem to have any reason for it other than why not, I was rolling my eyes because I really didn't need like I said, when they're trying to throw in as many kind of references to the heroes, that I really didn't need him to be like, they call this missile the Green Arrow, never misses its target. I was like, ugh. Did you really need to do that just to try and involve the Green Arrow, even though you're not in any way? All right. But yeah.
I mean, this story is not a huge offender of this, but don't get me started on huge monologues that nobody needs.
Yeah.
Comic monologues.
Yeah, I actually,
no.
I'll get to it, but I actually like most of the monologues in this story. But yeah, often in comics, you will get a long one that's like, all right, get on with it.
I mean, I don't remember one that is like hugely long in this one.
No.
Like, I think short ones, and that's fine. But if it's like 4 pages of monologue and like 1 page of this is just a recap. Okay, wow.
Yeah, exactly. I did like as well, this is only in the animated film, but I did like that Batman says, if you want me on your little Suicide Squad, because, all right. Even though I didn't like the Green Arrow reference in the comic, I did kind of like the Suicide Squad reference here, because it kind of fit.
I mean, it's accurate.
It is accurate, yeah. I did like as well that when they go to Project Superman, that his rocket that he flew to Earth in is the kind of Superman colors, the blue and red, because his costume really hasn't got any of that color. Although it does look similar to the new Supergirl costume in that it's got the kind of entire top bit is like one color compared to the rest of it. But yeah, and it's so horrific when you see the kind of failed clones of Superman that they've been trying to do. And I was like, ooh, shades of like an Alien movie or something here. But thankfully, they don't get too far into that. Yeah. I love all of the times, just talking about the plot, all the times that the Flash kind of sees flashes of the two timelines and the way that it uses that to emphasize, like, I'm forgetting reality that I know and this one's overwriting it and I can't forget. And then often you'll have Thomas Wayne saying, don't forget my son and whatever. So I appreciated that. And I thought the way it was animated in as like, these flashes was really well done as well. I did think it was funny that they talk about using the bat plane and it's just a regular plane with a bar in it.
Yeah.
Like, well, your Batman's probably not having to ferry high rollers from casinos and stuff.
Also, I really loved it. I don't know if it's in the comic because I didn't check back. I mean, the first half is in the comic, but I don't know if the back half is in the comic. When Flash wakes up, it's, we see this headline, news headline, like Doomsday World at War, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And when he wakes up the second time in the movie, it's just a financial crisis. It's just something. He
sees the same thing, and then it sort of pans out, and it says budget doomsday, world at brink of financial war or something, and it's just kind of
I thought it was so funny.
Yeah, that's not in the comic.
So far apart, and it's a really good joke.
Yeah, really. No, the comic does do the thing of him like waking up and he's in the he's in his lab or whatever in the police station, and then decides, oh well, life's too short, I'm just gonna leave early and go see Iris or whatever. But yeah, it's fair enough. I do like in all the versions, but as I say, primarily we're dealing with the comic and the animated film, when Thorne basically reveals to Barry that he's the one that changed the timeline, because obviously he's already aware of that in the TV show, but here he doesn't seem to remember. So Thorne really revels in like telling him like, oh, it's you that did this, you created this kind of time boom that broke the time barrier and shattered everything. I can buy the explanation, even though it's probably nonsense, but I'm like, all right, whatever, sounds good.
Yeah, one little thing, when the Reverse Flash is basically saying what the Flash has done, he adds in the movie this little nuance, not only that he changed the timeline, but that he changed the timeline for this exactly. There are examples of like, you could have, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the examples are. You could have done other things.
I know. We'll get to that because that's something I wanted to. I will bring up later, but I do like that line. I know what you mean. He's like, you could have done anything. You could have changed time for the better, but you had to save your mom, and that was supremely selfish of you when you think about all the good you could have done.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the comic just rests on the idea of you change time. This is bad, and the movie adds this little nuance that I think makes it better.
Yeah, because it shows that it's Thorne doing what he does, which is getting right to the core. Because he even taunts Barry at the start of the movie about like, I've killed all the people you care about, kind of thing. Because that guy, he's mean. The Reverse Flash, awesome, cool. I wanted to talk a little bit about the direction of the animated movie. Then, first of all, I want to say that I really love the animation style. To me, it seems almost anime style.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I was like, in the very first scene, I said I was like, oh, this is gonna be good, because I noticed I was immediately, oh, this looks like an anime.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly.
And
this
is gonna be good, and Definitely. It was. I do think there was a little bit of a lack of imagination in fighting choreos. I feel like it was a little bit stale at times.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't know if I would agree with that, because there wasn't that much. By the end fight, I was kind of glazed over, but the intro fight, when it's the proper timeline, and it's basically they've planted bombs, or the Reverse Flash has planted bombs on all of the rogues, and then the various Justice League have to deal with it in their own ways. I really thought that fight was excellent, because it's cool seeing that they do all deal with it their own way. Like Superman just holds it because he can just contain the explosion, and Green Lantern sort of flies to space and puts Batman in a bubble so he can dismantle it. And I forget what else. There's all kinds of like different people doing different things. And I was like, I really love the way this plays out. And, everybody gets to show who they are. Like the Green Lantern shows that he's close to the Flash with a little joke to him. And the Flash points out that like the Reverse Flash has no imagination because he can vibrate the molecules and then trap him as well or whatever. So I was like, this is a really good, like, even though it's not connected to the Flashpoint plot and it's nowhere in the comic, it's like a little sort of mini episode of one of the Justice League cartoons, and I really thought it was good. What did you think about that?
Fight scene was all right. But in the end, in this whole battlefield, it was a lot of shooting. It was, I don't know. I just like physical fight scenes. I just want people to just fight and swords or something. And
I know what you mean. To jump to the end fight, it really is. There's just for me, there's just too much going on. Like, there's parts that you can appreciate because they are important and they emphasize it. So like Wonder Woman killing young, like 11-year-old Billy Batson is really horrible. So both the comic and the film emphasize, like, oh, she just killed a kid. That's ouch, So that becomes important. Or when Batman kills the Reverse Flash, which is two different ways, like he shoots him and then is revealed in a really cool scene through the hole in the animated film, but he actually just stabs him with Wonder Woman's sword in the comic. So it's completely different. But yeah, I appreciated what they did with the stylization of the animation there, like the way the Reverse Flash is bragging, then gets a hole shot in him, and then the camera shows Batman behind the hole. It's really cool. I did also like, in terms of talking about physical fights, I thought it was a good fight when you saw Flashpoint Batman fighting Yo-Yo on that rooftop, because it seemed to be, because it was one-on-one and they were using her yo-yo and stuff, it seemed like you could follow it. And I was genuinely shocked when he just threw her off the roof. I was like, oh crap. I thought he was going to like catch her and be like, I would never would, but I'll torture you kind of thing. And I was quite shocked when he just left her for Cyborg. And then that funny joke of like, Cyborg, I surrender. Yeah, probably a wise decision, kind of thing. That was really cool. What did you think about the way that it shows you the backstory of the world in flashbacks? Because I really liked, like I said, that it shows you like the death of Bruce Wayne and then what happens to both of his parents. Because again, it's not part of the main comic, but I really like that idea that Martha Wayne just became the Joker in this world, and you see her like putting her bloodied hand over her mouth and it makes the smile and she just laughs, and that was really cool for me.
I liked it as well. If we're already going with the way Batman is in this universe, I think it does make sense to go to similar direction with Martha.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a little weird if she's just not perfect at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she could have been killed in theory. It could have been like, well, Bruce and his mom were killed and his dad survived.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really interesting take to be like, no, his mom survived and she's now his arch enemy kind of thing, You also get I forget what it's in reference to, but there's a great line when Thomas says to Barry, you'd be surprised at the monsters this world can create. And he's like looking at the Joker playing cards at the time. And I'm like, oof. All right, I get it. I love the animation when we talked about the experiment to give Barry his powers. It failed the first time, but the second time when it works, the way that the movie sort of goes into slow-mo and shows you the kind of flash time and everything, I really liked the way that was done. And anytime it does that kinetic thing that happens in anime when it's just like lines going behind somebody, I think it looks really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's not really much else I don't think that I've got, other than I've already talked about the reveal of Batman. And then you already said like the funny, like waking up in the same way and seeing the headline, except it's not quite the same. So yeah, awesome. Anything that you can think of to do with the direction of the movie?
No, I think I said what my main problem was. It was really towards the end, it got quite unimaginative with the fight choreo. It was a lot of just shooting out of panzers and something else, and I think it's part of an issue that I have with it overall, is in that there's just too many characters. Like, I get that it's supposed to be the entire world's changed and you need to see the stakes of that because everybody's affected, but when you take that to a battle and you've got a fight which has hundreds of people in it, you can't focus on what's happening unless it, like I said, it specifically tells you to focus on Wonder Woman killing the kid or Cyborg getting his heart exposed and almost ripped out and stuff. And it's like little moments that you can cut to, but the fight overall, you can't follow really. So I get what you're saying, definitely for that one. Yeah. I don't even think it was necessary. Like, I think what was necessary was to show alternative versions of everyone that was in the prologue. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But for a lot of, especially in the movie, that's just like, oh, we're starting something here. It's like starting off an animated universe. You don't need to show everyone, like, why? Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah, especially when you're just wiping out that universe anyway, like I said, because it's like, well, why would I care? He's undoing it, so why would it matter? Yeah, I get what you
mean. And in theory, there's no before version to compare it to in this idea. Except the people in the prologue. There you have a compared version. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. It would have been better if they'd focused it on, show you the Justice League in the prologue doing a fight in our universe, then focus on the members that were there and how they're different. Yeah. But then, like I said, it gets really stupid when it's like Lois Lane is meeting Canterbury Cricket and Etrigan the Demon and Grifter and these characters that are, Z-list DC characters that, fair play if you're a fan of them, more power to you. But I'll be honest, I struggle to even know who half of these guys were, and I didn't care really ultimately, yeah.
And even in the comic, is that not the point why there are like 60 tie-ins, so that you can do every character to just go, that's what they were doing in this time.
If you're in this altered world.
Do that, but like everything that is not necessary to the main storyline, cut it from the comic. It's not necessary. It's too much.
Yeah. Although I did think it was good that they managed to fit as much as they did. They fit basically all of the 5-issue thing into like an hour and 15 minutes. And I was pretty impressed that they managed to do that. Yeah. Awesome. Related to the direction, then I want to talk briefly. I have some things down under visual effects, but it's kind of the direction as well. And it's only 2 notes. First of all, I really love the kind of what I call the streaky fight between Thorne and Barry, because it's just similar to in the TV show when you just see like streaks of light and then they're at the end of it fighting, a bit like a Tron sort of fight. And I love the epic final scene of the Flash like running towards the camera, because I'm a sucker for that kind of ending. But yeah, that's really all I have on that. So you happy to move on to the acting then now?
I do.
Awesome. So yeah, you said yourself there's a couple of people, I'm assuming you mean Justin Chambers, who plays the Flash, and Kevin McKidd, who plays Thomas Wayne. You said we're both on Grey's Anatomy, so they're both known kind of TV actors. So were you impressed with your Grey's Anatomy family on this thing?
I think this is an unpopular opinion, but I was generally not that impressed with the voice acting most of the time.
Oh, okay.
I was, and I think it might be just a case of that this is the normal standard of voice acting in the US, and I'm just going into it. But I am used to a different style of voice acting, and I feel like it's partially a style issue. And I don't know, it doesn't work for me.
Okay.
It's very acted in a way. It feels very TV show-esque. Like, it feels like what you would see in a TV show. And I am used to, when it's animated, that you go a little more over the top, have fun with it, be louder. And it was very quiet and, quiet in general.
Okay. I kind of agree with you, but I do think there are a few standouts that do, bring that extra delay to it. The first one, I think, C. Thomas Howell, who plays Thorne, Reverse Flash, Zoom, whatever you call him. I think he's really good, but he has too small of a role. Like I know he's not really part of the comic either until the very end, but I would have probably written in a little bit more for him to do, because he plays that role incredibly well. And he gives off that sense of like real menace and hatred that you have to get from the Reverse Flash. Obviously Kevin Conroy as Batman is fantastic, but he's barely in it because he's the main universe Batman. But I mean, even if there was just that line at the end about you're one heck of a messenger and he gets the message off his dad, that is already a fantastic performance, because it's Kevin Conroy, it's what he does. And I also thought Nathan Fillion, who plays Hal Jordan, was really good. Like he stands out as being a step above most of the voice actors. But yeah, Justin Chambers, I think, as the Flash he's good at what he does in terms of he has to anchor everything, but he is a little bit overshadowed, which I think he's kind of acted off the screen whenever he's with Thomas Wayne or the Reverse Flash, unfortunately.
I think that could have been more dramatic. It felt a little bit
maybe
at times. What who I really liked, I like Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo was amazing. She was so fun in this little sequence. And I really liked Noah Allen. I think
okay, cool.
that was great. It was really good.
One thing that does always surprise me,
not only as Noah Allen, but also in the beginning as young Barry Allen. She played both parts.
I see.
And
that's fair enough.
I think she was really good.
Cool.
It's my standout.
That's all right. The other thing that stands out to me, for a reason, and I'm always shocked, is that they've got Michael B. Jordan in this playing Cyborg, and I'm like, there's no way they could get that guy to do a cartoon voice role now. This was clearly just before Creed, before he'd like really hit it the big time, and he stands out for me because Cyborg's meant to be like the Superman of this altered timeline, the main hero, and he does, like, every time I hear it, I'm just like, that's Michael B. Jordan. He's like a proper superstar, you know. Did you notice that was him, out of curiosity? Or
I can't say because I looked the voice cast up beforehand.
Okay, fair enough. That's okay then. Awesome.
So, but I recognized his voice, so I can say it was not changed to something random. You can't notice that. It was. I mean, it was just Michael B. Jordan doing.
Yeah, but it uses his star power to be like, you can see why he's, you know, for me at least. Maybe that's me because I know how big he is now, like leading into it. But yeah, I think it was cool anyway. So did you have any other notes on the acting then before we move on?
Not really. I already said all my negative thoughts about it.
Fair enough.
I noticed that in other US stuff as well, and I think it's probably just a thing that I don't know how I mean, UK gets probably just always the same version as the US, so it doesn't matter. In this sort of thing, or are there separate UK versions for animated stuff?
No, we get the same as the US.
The same, no?
Yeah, and it's often the same exact disc because they tend to have like an FBI warning in the front now. So with Blu-ray, they don't even bother giving it a different region for us.
Yeah, okay. Because I noticed this in a lot of US animation that maybe it's just a style that they use that I just don't like. I don't know.
I see.
I'm just used to very over the top, exaggerated, fun portrayals, really going for it completely, going into it in a way that you don't do in live action.
Yeah, but you watch a lot of like anime and Japanese animation, though, right? You're a fan of all that kind of thing, so you're probably
but also the German dubs of it as well. Over the top and going. I wanted to take a look at if this had a German dub, but it doesn't. So I don't know
that sucks.
I really wanted one, but to just look how they did it, but there isn't.
You'll have to make one. You'll have to play all 150 roles yourself. I do have a couple of notes just about the music, but it's really kind of self-explanatory. Just that, you know, it has really good heroic music as they fend off the government attacks, and as Grifter and everyone's killed, it starts to swell and go all dramatic. And it does the same again when Thorne reveals that Barry's to blame, and you know, the music and effects when Barry enters the Speed Force again do that kind of heroic, bombastic thing, and that's really all I've got. Just it's really good. It's not bad, but it's not like stand out. You know, I want to buy the soundtrack. It's just it does exactly what it's supposed to do. So yeah, any thoughts from you on the music, or did you think the same thing?
I can only judge music in a positive way, and that is if I notice it. If I notice it, then it's very positive, and if I don't notice it, then it was there. I don't remember one track of it.
Yeah, it's not especially stand out now.
So I mean, so it did what it needed to be done.
Yeah, definitely.
Nothing stand out.
The last note I have then before we get into our favorite character, moment line, etc. Did you know that there's a post-credit sequence to this film, and did you watch it?
I did.
So what did you think of the incredibly brief post-credit scene of a portal opening in space and parademons flooding out?
I don't think of it.
It was basically just to point out that they're setting up the equivalent of the New 52, but for the animated movies. So it was setting up the next animated movie, and it's there to be like, okay, this is the point where we're starting our continuity all over again, just like the comics. But yeah, it's a kind of a nothing scene, especially if you've sat through all of the credits to get there. So as I said, we're going to do what we do with all of our movie reviews now and jump to our favorite character, moment, and line. Then we'll give the audience responses for what we actually have, and then our conclusions. So first of all, Tobi, as the guest, I'm coming to you first. Who was your favorite character in this animated movie?
I always forget this question comes.
Well, you can always just answer it off on the spot if you like.
Who was my favorite character? Batman, the Thomas Wayne Batman.
That's not surprising. I think a lot of people would have agreed with you on that one. That's fair enough. I went with Barry because I know you don't agree, but I think he sells everything from the sadness to the determination to the heroism that Barry goes through. So, yeah, I think I really liked the Flash in the Flash movie. Do you have a favorite moment that springs to mind from the movie?
I do have a sequence that actually two. One is both in the comic and in the movie, and it's the sequence where everyone is like at the house of the Shazam kids.
Okay.
I really like this sequence, and one specifically from the movie was the extended Superman sequence. I really not the sequence on itself, it's good, but I really enjoyed how they extended it and made it so much better in the movie.
I see. Awesome. That's a cool answer. I like that. Yeah, they definitely did. For me, I just said it's really hard to beat the gut punch ending. The kind of the double blow of Barry remembering his other life and Batman telling him it's a gift, and then Barry giving Batman the letter from his dad and him kind of crying. I was like, there's so many things that are great, but it's that ending that I think really sticks with you specifically after the end of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And not that you can necessarily remember, but can you think of a single line that you thought was the best?
No, I'm trying to think, but I can't think of any particularly good line. I can quote any. No,
you can just use the line of Superman going, "Friend." I wrote it down because you kind of alluded to it earlier, but I thought this was a really good line and very well delivered. It's the Reverse Flash Zoom saying, "Her hero, how noble. Oh, wait, you didn't stop JFK from getting assassinated or make sure Hitler stayed in art school. You saved your mommy. You missed her. And in a supreme act of selfishness, shattered history like a rank amateur, turned the world into a living hell moments away from destruction. And I'm the villain." I just thought that was, wow. Talk about your fantastic...
I mean, out of
hitting monologues.
out of all the tragedies to name besides Hitler, it's the assassination of JFK.
I know, right? Well,
that's the one second thing you want to mention.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're Americans. That's all they can think of, clearly. But yeah, that's fair enough. Before we get to our conclusions, then I do have just two very brief audience responses to this movie, because we do have a couple for the the comic overall and the the TV show. First of all, this is from 62 Punks Rule CW on Instagram. They just say, "The animated film had me wanting more each and every time I see it. What happens to Superman after the world dies, as he would most have certainly have survived? Dark side manipulation with the word friend. Possibilities are endless." Yeah, okay. And my usual co-host DK chimed in to say, "I didn't mind the event so much, but as until that point a lifelong DC reader, what it led to was, in my opinion, an abomination. The New 52 took a coherent universe and turned into what, for the most part, was Image Comics around 1995, and all for a sales bump that lasted only a few months. It was such an aberration that they've been trying to retcon the thing for years now. Dan Didio did what years of comic reading had, until that point, failed to do. It made mine marvel. Well done, Dan. Slow clap. I hope the revamped DC cinema universe has a better hand on the tiller." Don't mince your words, DK. Yeah, it has to be said. I think that was, we haven't really touched on it, but that was the main, I guess, reason for Flashpoint, is that it was in a similar way to how Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of reset continuity to give everybody a jumping on point and, streamline the universe. The idea of Flashpoint was to start everything with this new 52, they called it, where it was 52 titles that would start from issue 1, a whole new continuity, and it would, the main difference was that it would merge the DC universe with the Vertigo and Wildstorm universes so that they'd all be one combined thing now. DC do this all the time. They've done that since with Rebirth, and like I said, they did it with various crises and everything. But yeah, in terms of, we're not going to look too far into that, but I will say that it was weird that the CW shows, before we get onto that, adapted Crisis on Infinite Earths really well, and pretty, a lot more faithfully when it came to it than Flashpoint, which was just like kind of throwaway and adapted in a very minimalist way. But that's neither here nor there. So anyway,
I mean, I just say I'm completely biased because I just chose out of random New 52 as my starting point.
Okay.
For one big reason, I mean, it's a starting point that's good, and there is already an ending point, like another refresh. So I have like a good amount of material between these, so I can just go read a bunch every time I just feel like it. And
yeah, definitely. And I mean, for as much as DC as DK criticizes it, it is the New 52 that basically is the one that they were working with the Arrowverse, particularly with the TV version of the Flash. It seems to be the New 52 versions of those characters and stuff that they went with. So, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a complete failure, other than, maybe there were some decisions that were wrong, and ultimately perhaps it was best not to just constantly keep on relaunching every few years. But again, they're still doing it, so what can we do? So, do you have a conclusion and a score out of 5, Tobi, or shall I do mine while you gather your thoughts?
Do yours first.
Okay. So I just said, this is a brilliant, if overstuffed film. The fact that it manages to tell the whole Flashpoint story perfectly well in 80 minutes using just the core series shows what a rip-off the dozens of tie-ins to these event crossovers are. That said, the pace does sometimes feel a little bit too breakneck, with less room than I'd like to stop and breathe. The comic story might have been a gimmick to launch yet another DC retcon, but Jeff Johns and co managed to write a fascinating, captivating, and emotionally impactful story. The glimpse of this altered world is fascinating, but it's the personal costs that hit the hardest and give the story its real strength. Batman and Flash are the standouts, of course, but everyone gets a part to play. I think I'll be glad that the new movie will presumably be a bit more focused, with less need for the ridiculous amount of characters or huge stakes. But for this movie, it works incredibly well. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So...
I think the concept is, I mean, it's a pretty basic concept on the paper. It's executed very well. The cameos are a bit too much, and it's a bit too fan servicey at times. And as I said, my biggest problem with animation, it's a little bit, well, it gets a little unoriginal towards the end. I mean, in the comic, it's not as noticeable. It is a little, but because of the way, I mean, comics work, I think you just notice it less when the choreo is not on point, because, I mean, a lot of comics are just not that great with fighting comics, and there's more of a standout more often than just a consistent good quality, which I think is different for animated stuff. I think there are a lot of great animated shows and battles, and besides all of that, the end just feels a little lackluster in fighting comics. So that's my biggest problem. Story-wise, it does everything pretty great. I think all the changes are cool, although you have to sometimes get a little bit of a leap into that. Overall, I quite liked it. I would have given it 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, cool. That's fair enough. So that means that overall, then, since it's just the two of us, the final score for Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox would be 3.75 out of 5. So, so not bad. Before we jump on to our next thing, which is going to be a TV episode, just for a bit of a difference, did you have anything else you wanted to say about the comic before we move past it?
No, I said what I said.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. Like I said, it's basically just the same in almost every way. 90% of it's the same as the animated movie, and everything that changed doesn't really affect anything. So you can kind of watch or read either way, I think, and you're going to pick it up. So awesome. So the next thing we were going to do then, as a special bonus, we wouldn't normally do TV, but I was intrigued to see how Flashpoint, again, ahead of the new movie, was adapted by the Flash TV series. So I asked Tobi, and I decided myself to watch episode 1 of season 3 of The Flash, because it is called Flashpoint, and it is another adaptation of the same story. So yeah, as I say, we're going to do much the same way. Kind of just we'll do it by sections and try not to take too long with it since it's only a 45-minute episode. But did you have anything you wanted to say before we start with any of that, Tobi?
I don't have anything particular in the beginning to say, but I just want to say that I liked a lot of I like the way it adapted the story. So it's going to be definitely positive for the most part.
That's fair enough then. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so in terms of the writing and the plot then, the first thing that it's worth noticing is that, because I'm going to jump in with writing and plot first. The first change is that Barry's decision to go back in time and alter history is prompted in this version by the death of his father, who has just been killed at the end of season 2 by Zoom. Not the same person as Reverse Flash in the TV show. Don't get me started. That's a whole other confusing mess. But yeah, all we need to know is that Barry was, he remembers what he did, and it was just sheerly because he'd lost both of his parents at that point and decided he was going to go back and change things. We see him wake up in this changed reality where there's a new Flash that we would come to know as Kid Flash. It's Wally West. And Iris doesn't know Barry except from school because he never actually lived with her in this timeline since, he wouldn't have lost his parents. So Thorne explains that this is basically, this reality is nothing but a mirage and it's a fiction that will end them, that Barry is selfish to let other people risk their lives and the common enemy that's coming for them is time. So, any thoughts on sort of the way Barry and Thorne handle the changed timeline in this one, Tobi?
I do want to say one thing beforehand, because the way it is introduced that it happened because his dad died. I think this is a way better starting point to do that than the film and the comics, because in the film and comics it's just like the mother is dead since I don't know how many years exactly, and it's like he gets provoked by Reverse Flash and then he sort of decides to do that on the anniversary. And while I wouldn't say it doesn't work, I think the immediate idea of now he has lost both his parents, so now he goes back to save one of them, I think works a lot better.
I agree, and I do also think it's a better change in this version. I prefer that Barry actually remembers what he's done from the start, because I didn't like in the comic and the animated movie that he's not aware that it was his fault that the world changed. I prefer him kind of knowing it and then having to come to the realization of like, oh, look at what is happening because of me. But he has to live with that for a while first instead of being kind of unaware. And, I kind of like that he basically has Thorne captured because he's aware that it was Reverse Flash that killed his mum, has been the whole time in this version. And so he keeps him kind of locked up so that he can't hurt anyone. And you have that kind of almost Hannibal Lecter thing where he's visiting Thorne to give him food and stuff. And Thorne's like, this is going to go badly, Flash. Just so you know, you are going to beg me to kill your mum. And I'm like, I missed that kind of dynamic in the other versions that you kind of get here. Would you say the same?
I think that only works in the TV version because the alternative version, the TV version, is so different from the way the alternative version in the movie and in the storyline works. Because in the movie and in the comic, it's a very bad Doomsday version. So having him remember it in the start wouldn't really work, I think, because it's already a version that's so bad that, it wouldn't be hard to ask the question, why wouldn't he in the beginning just undo it? Especially because it's in the beginning, it's made very clear that not only is like Europe in danger, like it's going to come over as well.
Yeah,
at some point.
I see what you mean.
So, So you kind of need that forgetting that it happened to actually live out this. Here you don't need it because this alternative version is not completely horrible. It is
not at first.
So it kind of works that he remembers it and goes, no, I actually enjoy this alternative version, and that he, out of his own choice, wants to stay there for now. It wouldn't work with a complete Doomsday version, and this is, I mean, as much as this gets a little bit more bad later on, it never goes into doomsday world ending status.
No, it's implied that it probably would have done if he'd left it longer, because you also have it does do the same thing that the comic does, where he says that like his memories are being overwritten to this new reality and eventually he'll forget the original timeline the way it was, but that would be catastrophic because time itself would catch up with you because it doesn't like the idea of being changed, basically. Which, it's not really explicit, and it's kind of hinted at in other episodes of the show that time would try and correct its error. But like you said, all we really get is 3 months of Barry living happily and kind of working up the courage to ask out Iris and living with his parents. And so, yeah, everything's kind of fine until it's not, basically.
Yeah. And the problems are mostly focused that Barry himself has a problem moving forward. It's not like he will forget what happened, but that's not a problem for the universe. That's a problem for him. He doesn't want that. Like, if time catches up and he just forgets everything, the world, I don't think it's sad that the world is that's going to go boom or something, or universe is just ending. No, it's a problem for him, and that becomes increasingly more difficult to solve.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, but it's kind of like he knows that he would lose his powers, first of all, because unlike, again, the original version, he has his powers when he's changed the timeline, which again doesn't make a whole bunch of sense, but we'll go with it because he's losing them anyway. Because really, once he changed the timeline, he should never have been hit with the lightning or had the particle accelerator explosion that gave him his powers. But again, we'll buy the explanation that it took a few months for time to catch up and make him lose his powers, I guess.
It's also that we see in this version, like he just doesn't. It's not like he wakes up in this new reality and suddenly like moving forward. He comes through a portal into this universe. So it's not like he has, quote unquote, lived in this universe forever. However,
I don't know
how that works, but at least he comes into that universe, so we can believe more that he keeps his powers at first. Then
of course,
like a full reset of where am I?
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because it did strike me as weird that like he does that with Thorn instead of dealing with him in the time when he stops him killing his mum. He races him back to the future, no pun intended, and goes back to his time, which is now changed. And it's kind of like, why would you run him, decades into the future, other than that's where you're from? But you could have, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But again, it doesn't really explain the cool thing about, does he get the memories of this world of living with his parents, which was a nice part of the original that I don't think you really get here, because it doesn't tell you one way or the other, really, whether he remembers it. Or at least not that I remember, but anyway. I do like that, although a lot of people don't like this, but I do like the kind of the epic romance angle that it gives Barry and Iris, where even though they haven't really met yet in this timeline, she gets the sense of like, this is what love feels like. Maybe some people are meant to be together, kind of thing.
Oh my God, I hated this so much.
Did you?
I thought it felt like so much like, oh, it was destiny that in every timeline Iris and Barry have to get together. It's like, oh my God. Like, the feeling of something is off is fine to go, because it's from the original timeline. So I can get behind saying, oh, they feel like something is off, and I could get behind I kept agreeing to this date, even though normally I wouldn't. But in the end, they have like a talk between them two in the labs, where they go off and then in the hallway just talk. It is so strongly implied that it's destiny, and it always was meant to be this way, and that was too much. Like, I could have just done with something is off, and I agree to this even though I normally wouldn't, but I didn't need it to be that much destiny.
So I love that, because I'm a sucker for any time it's like, it's all the power of love. And like I said, I loved that it explained it with the line of Iris saying, we're something else to each other in that world, aren't we? Because this is what love feels like. So I must therefore, clearly I loved you in this other world. And that was still strong enough to kind of fight through the timelines, I guess. But plus I just thought that like, Grant and Candace had really incredible chemistry in this episode. Like, I don't always buy their chemistry as Barry and Iris, but in this episode, I was like, yeah, there's a heat between them, definitely, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, what did you think? This is a really weird point, but what did you think of the choice of the rival as the villain, sort of, that they would be dealing with in this alternate world? Because it's a very weird choice.
I mean, I don't mind it really, because I feel like in the story, like, whoever was going to be the villain was really just not the main focus. So, like, it could have been anyone. So why not?
Oh yeah. It could have been, but I think it had to be. It had to be a speedster, but it couldn't be any of the main people they wanted to use as like a big, ongoing big bad for the whole season thing. But yeah, it's weird because the rival in the comics is actually an enemy of the original Jay Garrick Flash. So he's like a golden age type character. And it was so weird seeing him adapted in this way. But like you said, he doesn't really, he gets, an importance to the plot, especially as you go into the next episode. But it really could have been anybody. It was just somebody for Wally to fight as the Flash so that Reverse Flash could be like, you're letting Wally risk his life instead of you, kind of thing. And then, almost gets killed. But yeah, that's fair enough. In terms of the other changes, then, what did you think? Because again, they kind of could do what the comic did in that they could change everything knowing it was going to be changed back. But obviously, they only really have the Flash characters to play with. But they did do that thing where Cisco in this universe is a billionaire, who doesn't want anything to do with the Flash, and Caitlin is just a child's dentist. Yeah, so,
I think she was an eye doctor.
That's right, a kitty eye doctor. That's right. Sorry, my mistake. Yeah, and so it's like you get enough of a change, I think, that you're like, this is a weird alternative world, but it's not like Aquaman and Wonder Woman are destroying everything. But I like this because it's kind of more personal, and it's nice to see characters that you've kind of come to know over 2 years and see how different they can be, and be like, this is so weird. Did you think the same or not?
What I really love is how she is just through this whole time isn't sure if she's just kidnapped or not.
Am I kidnapped? So am I free to go? Yeah, because it's so weird that out of nowhere he's just like, I know who I have to go and get, and just grabs Caitlin randomly. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that's kind of really all I have in terms of the sort of overall plot, because like I say, a lot of it is Flashpoint, so we've kind of touched on it. But did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
I have. I want to say that I actually really like how this is a universe that's in a lot of ways just not that it's not a doomsday universe. In a lot of ways, it's not a bad universe, even for Barry himself. Outside of the forgetting memory stuff, that's like, but like the way the universe is, it's not horrible for him. Like, it's not the best universe ever, but it's manageable, and he still wants to go back. And I really like the lesson behind it, that you don't have to paint a doomsday universe to make a character appreciate what they have in the real universe. You can just go with a slightly different universe that has good things and bad things both, but is still different from the universe he is from, and he still wants to go back to the universe he is from, because he has all these relationships in the old universe and all these.
I don't even think it's that so much as like it kind of explicitly points out that he's going back because Wally's about to die, and it's like, I can't let anybody else die for me, especially when it's my fault,
But this is stupid. That's why I ignored that. I hate that. I did get that a little, but I was like, maybe I just overlooked this and we pretend it didn't happen.
I mean,
because that would be a little bit simple, I thought.
I think it's kind of annoying that it feels like it needs that to kind of hold your hand as like, this is the big stakes, is that if he stays in that timeline, Wally will die. But then again, there are other things that we haven't touched on, like the fact that Joe West in this universe is basically an alcoholic and a bum and doesn't care for his job and doesn't talk to Iris, and so they're miserable, kind of thing. So And then even Cisco, even though he's a billionaire and you would think it's a good thing, he's basically a bit of an a-hole. So, he doesn't want to get involved with anything. And so and he's
And honestly, I totally believe that with time, Barry could have stayed there and probably built the same Flash team again. I think this would have. I totally saw that as a possibility of happening, that this would be the future that this would go in if he stayed. But it's just not the original. It's just not his original friends. Even though he could stay and work on it and probably get the team together. I think he could. But he doesn't want to because, I mean, it's not the original. It's not the way it was.
I think it's also the fact that it's kind of, it goes back to that Spider-Man idea of like, he doesn't want anybody else to have to face his responsibility. And if he loses his powers, he's not the Flash in this world. Wally is, and Wally's already dead. So at this point, you actually have no Flash. So it's kind of like, well, yeah, at this point, I have to go back because I've got this power and I'm the one that mucked it up. So I've got to go back so that I can protect everything, I guess, as the Flash. So
that's right.
There's a bit. Yeah. Anyway, so did you have any thoughts before I jump into my little tiny few notes about the direction of the episode? Not that there's much because TV direction is very, you're just following what's already established. But yeah.
No, I've said everything I wanted to say.
I only have a couple of notes. First of all, I both appreciate and am annoyed by the fact that they use the Back to the Future timeline diagram to explain things, because it's such the most basic thing, and yet I can't argue with it because it makes the most sense when he's like, let me just draw this for you. This is the original timeline. This is the cutoff point where I changed everything, and this is our timeline. And I'm like, all right, I'll give you this once.
Okay, to add to that, I just love how he writes on the glass because it's what they do.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Don't write about that.
Yeah, and Cisco's just like, don't do that. But yeah. And the only other thing I have is that towards the final fight, I really thought it was good when they kind of have the tornadoes happening. And first of all, I do love that they have Cisco. He's like some kind of weather wizard because, hint of Cisco naming the bad guys, even though it's not the same guy. But yeah, I love that he got the pep talk. And then Barry, I thought there were really good effects during the fight with the rival when he's facing the tornadoes and then having to like speed fight with him and stuff. For TV effects, I thought they were really good. But I will say, I think it's so obvious that Clarus, the rival, has to reveal himself because you're going to have them know who he is in the next episode, because there's no reason at the start of that fight for him to take off his cowl and be like, my name's Edward Clarus. Rivals should know each other's names. And I'm like, ooh, that is so clunky. Like there's no reason why you would randomly do that. But yeah, why not? I guess. Yeah. Any other thoughts from you on the direction?
I mean, to the last point, like even without it, I think it was because that doesn't happen. It's so weird and out of left field. I just think it's a fun idea to just go. This villain just wants to know who the heroes are. It's like, okay, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an alternative universe, so why not have?
No, I know, but I mean, like, I was telling you that I've watched ahead to the next episode, and it's kind of vital to the next episode that they know who Edward Clarus is, because the point is that they kind of the new villain is giving people that had powers in Flashpoint powers in the other timeline, so they have to know that when the rival appears, Barry has to be like, his name is Edward Clarus. He remembers that so exactly, and I'm like, all right, calm down. Okay,
it's true as well.
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on the acting? Because I have a lot of, mostly positive thoughts on the acting in this one.
I don't have anything specific, but I just want to say everyone did a good job, I think. I don't remember anything negative. There wasn't really any. I do think Barry and Iris are both well acted as the couple, until the point where they like literally with very big bold letters write destiny over them. but that's a writing issue. They're not at fault for that.
You either buy that or you don't really, though. But yeah, that's the writing, isn't it, really? I get you. That's fair enough. Yeah, I just have a few. I love Grant Gustin as the Flash. I think he's a really good actor and he's fantastic in that role.
I do too.
So I kind of love how he starts off with you know, he's almost mocking Thorne, and he's like, I have everything back that you and Zoom took from me. And then by the end, he's like, everybody's paying for my happiness. And he has to kind of see his parents one last time, and it kind of breaks your heart as he kind of flashes and sees that new, you know, the new universe going away and everything. You know, I kind of, yeah, it's really sad, but I think, again, relating to what you were saying about how the Flash of the animated film didn't stand out all that much, I think Grant Gustin, on the other hand, really stands out as being the lead of this. And, you know, the effect of, even though the changes aren't like apocalyptic, the effect, I think, is way more heartfelt on him than it would be on the others. So
because it's way more personal, not because it's way more personal, because almost all of it is personal.
Yeah,
I think that's
exactly. But yeah, related to that, I have to say, I think Matt Letcher, who plays the Reverse Flash here, is so good. He's probably, for me, the best actor in the episode, because it's the way he plays, the kind of the absolute hateful like malice towards him, and like he's like, one day soon, Barry, you'll be begging me to kill her again, and then he actually does, like, oh, I want you to actually say it. Oh, you have to kill my mum, my pleasure. And then when he's dragging Barry, he's like, oh, I wish I could kill you, but today I get to be the hero. So I was like, this dude, he is selling me on hating him so dang much, you know. But, yeah. And yeah, other than that, I've just said, as I've mentioned already, Barry and Iris have great chemistry, and it's great seeing the changes in Joe West, both in the altered universe and in the changes when he goes back, and you get to him saying, "Where's Iris?" and Joe going, "That ain't funny. You know they don't talk," kind of thing. So I loved all that. So, any other thoughts from you on that?
No. But I agree with you. Grant Gustin is really good as the Flash overall, just not only in this episode, but overall. Awesome. I'm kind of fed up though with people saying he should be the movie Flash. Like, no. Like, I get where they come. Yeah. Like, I get where they're coming from, no, because I mean, he was on a TV show, and it's a long-running TV show, but TV is always a little bit underappreciated, I think, especially because it was on CW. And
yeah.
So I get where they're coming from with the idea of put him in a big movie, more exposure and all. But I also kind of want to see someone else doing the part. Like,
yeah, I think it wouldn't be as bad if it wasn't for the fact that we currently just want anybody other than the guy who's playing the Flash to be the Flash right now. So at this point, it's like, just get anybody else. We don't care. Yeah,
that's fair. And like a cameo, I'm always open for it. A cameo, why not?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah,
that is cool. Would be cool, but not as the main picture. Like, find someone else. Find someone else. Someone new. Especially because he has done the part so long. It's like, how many years?
10 years.
Has this show run? It's not like he made one season that got unfortunately cancelled, and it's like, okay, let's give him another shot. No, he had a good run. So
yeah, fair enough.
Someone else. I don't like this discussion.
So I didn't want to talk too much about the TV show, so I only have like a handful of other notes. But so the first thing I have to mention is, what did you think of? I really love the kind of cool endings you get to the TV show, because they can end on big cliffhangers. So I love that you see the Clarus of our reality wake up, and then alchemy is just scratched in his mirror, because it's like, ooh, intriguing. I want to see where this is going next. Yeah, what did you think of that?
I mean, it's an okay cliffhanger. Why not? I was not. I mean, where is this going? I think we could kind of expect where this is going.
Oh, I don't know. I think it was very different than what you would expect personally, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I appreciated that it was, it doesn't immediately explain every change to this reality. Like, it gradually takes a couple of episodes to tell you everything that's changed when Barry's tried to put it all back. But the fact that it uses the Flashpoint timeline as a way to get you kind of all the villains, including the main villain for this season, in that, like, the bad guys are basically taking people that had powers in the other timeline and giving them powers here. And so that kind of relates it all back to Flashpoint and Barry without having to have that last longer than just one episode, I guess. So I kind of liked what they did with that, to adapt it that way.
I really like, before that, the cliffhanger with Joe and Iris not talking to each other. I think that would have been a really cool cliffhanger to go, oh, not everything is good. And then you can kind of guess, Is it completely wrong, or is it just a little wrong? What is going on?
Yeah,
I would have liked that more.
Yeah, I would say the same, but having watched ahead, that's resolved immediately in the next episode, which is kind of annoying. So,
yeah, I know that.
Okay.
I barely remember what happened. Only barely.
Yeah, I don't know. I kept on watching for a couple of episodes because I like The Flash, and I was like, man, I forgot how good these episodes are. But yeah, I do find it amusing that literally the very next scene at the start of the next episode is him running to Felicity and being like, "What's changed? What have I done?" But yeah. And then the weirdest changes, just changing the gender of John Diggle's baby for no apparent reason. All right.
And that this, I remember that this was like a huge point for quite a couple episodes, I think. And it's like, oh my God.
And it's what's even weirder is that then by the end of The Flash, when Oliver gets this reality-changing power, he just makes it that they have a boy and a girl at the end, so it's even more pointless. Yeah, very weird. But yeah, I've mentioned already the VFX from the rival fight I thought were really good. I didn't have any real notes on the music except that it got me with the kind of sad moment when he's saying goodbye to his parents. But I'm guessing you're probably going to feel the same as the animated film, like it was just there kind of thing.
It was there.
Yeah. The only other things I have are just references, basically, that I have in my other section. The news channel at the start of the episode is channel 52. Haha, I get what you did there. And they make references to the Kid Flash, obviously, and to him having a fortress like Superman, where he basically has as a lair. And yeah. So, super quickly, do you have a favorite character moment and line from the episode that you can think of?
I do really like the multiple sequences between Flash and Reverse Flash in this episode. I mean, it's not like the one sequence that stands out, but it's like the multiple that build upon each other towards the end of the episode. I think they are great.
Yeah, I agree as well. But yeah, so I didn't really have anything sort of separated in the way we normally do for these sections. But I just said my favorite character was Barry, which is pretty self-explanatory. My favorite scene was the rival fight at the end, as I've already kind of alluded to. And my favorite line is the Reverse Flash just saying, "Now who's the villain, Flash?" Because again, there's a version of that in like all of these Flashpoint stories. And there better be something like that in the movie. So yeah, any other thoughts from you on characters, moments, and lines that you liked?
No.
Cool. Well, I have a very brief audience interaction section that I can go to. Okay. Then this is just from DK. DK says it was okay for what it was, but I think they had better storylines in the show. I remember the Cisco thing. I quite like that element of it. Yeah, it wasn't too bad for what it was. If you're not sure, basically it's the idea that Cisco in the altered timeline has lost his brother. He's been killed, but Barry won't go back in time and change that for him. And Cisco basically took a major huff for half a season about that. So, yeah. So, do you have a conclusion on the score out of 5 for the Flash episode Flashpoint?
I think in the context this was done in the series, it adapted the story really well.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have not. I mean, you have to change a lot of things because a lot of things are just not. This storyline in the comics is so different and builds upon so many things that with a lot of Justice League characters that you just could not get into the story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it has to change a lot, and I think it does do that very well. I think it does probably do it for the most part in the best way it was possible to do it in the context of the show.
Yeah. Okay.
Score 4.5 out of 5. I think awesome. It was really well done in the context of the show.
That's cool. I said more or less the same. I just said it's hard to judge it as a single thing outside of the season-long arc, but I do slightly prefer the tighter focus on Barry / the Flash than the movie and comic give you. As a faithful adaptation of Flashpoint, it naturally fails because, as you said, there's so much that you can't feature. But as a plot that uses it to be a clever springboard for the TV show, it's handled well, and I would say covers the most important beats. The acting is incredible, the story is plenty interesting, and as an episode of a TV show that I really enjoy, I would have given it 4 out of 5. So, as I said, therefore, it would make the Flash episode Flashpoint would get a 4.25 out of 5 from us if we were rating it the way we do movies. So very good, I think it's safe to say. So
I do think it's interesting that they did this storyline so early in the show. Like it's the beginning of season 3.
Yeah, and as I was kind of alluding to earlier, I do find it really weird that you get Flashpoint several years before Crisis on Infinite Earths, when they were like, Crisis on Infinite Earths was decades before Flashpoint in the comics. But yeah, they adapt that one a bit better anyway.
But obviously they couldn't have known how long the show was gonna
No.
But it's still like, now that there's like 9 seasons, season 3 to do Flashpoint, which kind of lives off the idea that there is a huge history behind.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said, they were doing the New 52 stories, and that was the starting point. So in a way, it's kind of like, it's weird that they didn't get to it until season 3, but I see what you mean. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So any other last thoughts on Flashpoint or potential things you're looking forward to in the Flash movie then?
Last thoughts on the episode, not really having any. To the movie, I think what I expect is it's going to be a middle ground between the animated movie and the TV show. I think it's going to be a lot closer than the TV show, because it has the possibility to do that. The TV show just did not. The cinematic universe has a lot more possibilities to do it. Yeah, we already know that there are some changes being made, for example, with Batman. But yeah, I think it's still going to be a lot closer than the TV show, and I don't know what specifically I expect. I am going to be interested in the way they do the end sequence. I think that's going to be really the thing where it's going to be interesting, because it's supposed to reboot the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Which, even with the kind of changes in the Flash TV show, the Arrowverse was largely the same. I think after Flashpoint, it wasn't like everything was different and you'd rebooted the whole thing. But
no,
yeah,
exactly.
In that way, I think it's a lot more like the way the Arrowverse did Crisis, and the way that was handled in the comics, where it's going to be literally, things were post-Crisis and pre-Crisis, and I think it's going to be that, this is the end of one continuity, one universe, the start of another. And I think it might also, I expect that it'll probably also do what they did with Crisis on Infinite Earths, in terms of they're almost certainly going to visit other timelines and see cameos from other versions of DC characters and stuff, because why wouldn't you, if you have the chance to do that, if you're doing a multiverse movie and they've seen how popular that is? Having literally just come yesterday from watching Across the Spider-Verse, seems to be all the rage at the moment doing multiverses. So, yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be that with a bit of Flashpoint, but I think it's going to have a much tighter focus on, like, from all the publicity you can see, it's basically Flash, the other version of Flash that's probably going to turn out to be a bad guy, Batman and Supergirl. So I think that's going to be the main characters in it. Yeah. So do you think it's going to be something that we'll enjoy, because it's getting rave reviews all of a sudden out of the promos and early preview screenings?
I think I would probably enjoy this movie. Like, I don't think I would love this movie, but I think I would enjoy it.
Yeah. I'm intrigued to see what everyone's talking about in terms of the way they're raving about it. If it is just a matter of people are loving certain cameos, or it does something unexpected, because like I said, I don't know any spoilers other than what's officially been revealed. So I'm interested to see what I'm going to think of this one. Hopefully I'll have watched it by the time this comes out, or be about to. So yeah, awesome. And then, yeah, we'll be watching another DC film, even though the universe will be rebooted. We've got Blue Beetle coming up in August, and then obviously Aquaman at the end of the year, which is not getting as good of a response, but still.
Yeah, that's a little awkward, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks again, Tobi, for joining me to discuss all nerdy comic book related stuff on the podcast. And you have another one coming up with us later in the year, talking about comic related stuff, I'm sure.
There is. It's like one of those TV shows that we in the last episode that there's a new season coming. Always when I'm here, it's like, we have already new stuff planned.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like the Marvel title sequence. We'll be back.
Yeah, I should do that. I should work on putting a writing. It's like, Tobi will return in.
That would be fun.
Or a Guardians 3 ending. The spectacular Tobi will return.
You should do that for everyone who's already flat.
I do all the time, but yeah. Awesome. So do you have somewhere that people can find you if they're looking for you on the internet?
I haven't had anything to find last time, and now I even quit Twitter, so there's like even less.
Fair enough. I think everyone's doing the same, but you can always find me and the podcasts and some information for DK, our usual co-host, in the episode descriptions below. Or just look around. We're around on the internet, or we're always here and doing Silver Screen podcast episodes. Do go over if you haven't and follow our sister podcast, Hit or Miss Star Trek. We are currently just in the start of our 4th continuing series, reviewing Klingon-related episodes. You can catch those now, as well as hopefully Trekker Mind. If my editor has come through for me, you can catch Star Trek-related Mastermind and see who won our 2nd series of that this year. But we will be back with the Silver Screen podcast, fear not. Our next episode will be dropping on June the 29th, and it will be another tie-in to a big upcoming movie, as myself and my good friend Steve Brown will be reviewing Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, yeah, let's not talk too much about the response to the new Indiana Jones movie, which, again, hasn't been great, but we're still going to see it, and hopefully it's good, and we have Raiders to look forward to and look back on with that. So, yeah, that said, hopefully we can all enjoy the Flash movie and reconvene and see what's happening with it, and otherwise I will see you guys all here for the next episode, and you can catch Tobi soon. Bye, Tobi.
Bye.
And, remember, in the epic words of Arnie, we'll be back.
I'll be back.
You have been listening to the Silver Screen Podcast, hosted by Michael Wilson and DK. Created, produced, and edited by Michael Wilson. Behind the scenes sections and additional material produced by DK. Music by Timeless Journey. More information can be found at soundcloud.com/Timeless Journey. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Silver Screen Podcast, or look for the Silver Screen Podcast under Facebook groups. Links to all our social media accounts and more are in this episode's description. This podcast is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Just look for Silver Screen, Hit or Miss Star Trek. This has been a Mike's Podcast production. Copyright 2022. Thank you for listening.